Welcome in to episode 365 of Scarves Around the Funnel, part 3, with the former Hearts boss, Jim Jefferies. His second spell in charge of the football club. Plenty things happened between 2010 when he took over and when Vladimir Romanov decided he'd had enough of a Hearts legend. As well, we will take your questions, 20 questions from Hearts supporters that Jim will answer at the end of part 3. We hope you enjoy it. It's part 3 of episode 365 with the Hearts legend, Jim Jefferies. So you left Hearts in 2000 for Bradford in the Premiership. You joined Kilmarnock in February 2002. And then you returned to Tynecastle for a second spell in charge at the end of January 2010. How did that all come about with the interest from Vladimir Romanov to get you to replace Csaba Laszlo? What was the first kind of sign you thought, oh, this might work?
I'll tell you exactly what happened. Everybody thought that I left Kilmarnock and that I was, some maybe had an approach behind the scenes for the Hearts. That never happened. When I left Kilmarnock, that was it. It was time to leave. I should have left a year earlier, but I was convinced to stay on because I think that was long enough, 7 years. I mean, no many managers stay at a club 8 years. We kept them there in the Premier League and got to a cup final. So we had a great time there. It was time to go, and I was enjoying a bit of, again, just a little bit of a rest from it. Obviously, maybe hoping to get back into it, see what come up. And would you believe it? I was golfing at Dunbar.
I would believe it, yeah.
I thought you might laugh at that. So I was playing on the Monday, and I was actually taking a boy home via not the normal route I come home, but I was taking him via Duns and going down the road. And the phone went in the car, and it was Fetitovis, Sergei Fetitovis, and this boy who was a Hearts fan, who was sitting next to me in the car. And he looked at me, he couldn't believe. And he says, he wanted to have a chat with me. I says, well, I'm in the car at the moment. I says, you've got my number. I says, I'll be home in about an hour and a half. Okay, I'll give you a ring. Yeah. And I shut the phone down because I didn't want to chat with the boy sitting. And the boy, as soon as I put the phone down, I know nothing. I know nothing. He says, I won't say a word. So that's when I got home. He phoned me again and said that they were going to make a change in manager and they wanted to speak to me. I says, well, you better to do that when you've spoke to the manager first before I'll ever agree to meeting up. And they phoned me again and said that they were talking to him. They were speaking to him on the Friday, and they wanted to meet me in the afternoon. So they said that they spoke to him. I found out later on that they hadn't really spoken to him in the morning. They spoke to him after they spoke. They told him after they spoke to me. So I thought that was a wee bit strange because they said they were talking to him in the morning. As it turned out, they wanted me to go from that. I can remember it. We met at one of his offices in Castle Street, and as I come out, somebody seen me. It must have broke on the news because there was taxi drivers and that going by, and I rolled down the window. Well done, Jim. We're back. Great to have you back, and all this sort of thing. And I thought, God, I'm not even there yet. I've never been back to Tynecastle yet. So, but I was taken straight at 5 o'clock at night along. They had called the players in. I think one or two of the staff, quite rightly, weren't very happy that me coming in. They were obviously his backroom staff. And it was just a case of just saying, football's a funny game and being in the situation and all that, and suddenly it's all changed and I've been asked to take over. And but I hadn't prepared. I mean, nothing was prepared for the Saturday, so just a case of going up there and doing it. But that's how it turned out. Fetitovis. So I'll put it this way, I was a bit reluctant because I know how he operates, and you know how strange a man he was. It's well known in the press that he was mad lad, but sometimes he was a decent. But I said to Billy Brown before we took it, when I said to him, look, this will not be a long job. I can tell you this now. It doesn't matter how well you do. The fact that the more well you do there, the less time you've got. Because I think he likes it when you struggle, you've got a chance of being there a bit longer, you know.
Ah, because he's the hero. He can be the
Of
savior. He can't be the
course, of
savior when the
course,
manager's
you
doing all
want
the
him.
winning.
Really, that's what I think. The boys that were all like George Burley and all that were successful. I don't think he was up for that. He was, because he had nothing to do. He wasn't getting any praise or nothing. It was
Correct.
George, quite rightly. But he was. I found him. I found him to be fair, okay. Just some things that he did that I was experienced enough to know that I was. He would phone me up and say, you know, don't play him. On why? And he'd say, oh, well, he's going to get intimidated today. And I said, but you're in Lithuania. How do you know that? And it was strange. And I just said, I used to just always say, it's too late. I put the team sheet in.
That was Rudy Scatchell at St Johnstone, wasn't it?
Scatchell, said, what happened was he phoned me up before the St Johnstone game. We had just beaten Hibs at Easter Road on the Saturday. We Oboe's last minute goal. And we then went and beat Celtic in midweek 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
And the place was just jumping that night. And then, of course, we had to go up to St John. And you know how there was a little bit of, on the Hibs game, with Riordan and on social media with
And
Rudy.
Scatchell.
By the way, Rudy was a great guy and everything. And he never said nothing then. But how could he be intimidated? If he was going to be intimidated, it possibly would have been at Easter Road and not St Johnstone. I mean, God, they only have a few thousand supporters up there. We would have a big crowd. So how would he be?
But you
Anyway,
played Celtic in midweek in front of what, 16,000? If he's going to be intimidated, he's going to be
exactly,
intimidated by
exactly.
that.
So he said to me at 10 to 2, he says, don't play him. I says, I can't. You're too late. I put the team sheet in. I hadn't, but I put the team sheet in. He says, oh, well, watch him closely and take him off if you feel it's. And I'm saying, oh, I just ignored it. And I think Sergi came up and he sat and he says, Mr. Roman, I says, yeah. I think he was on my side, you know, in terms, but he couldn't show that or do it. He had to be loyal to Romanoff. Maybe being frightened, I don't know, but he never went against him. But I think a lot of the time he agreed that I could handle the situation quite well, you know. And
When
we won 2-1 up there and really played the whole game.
wasn't he intimidated? Funnily enough,
It was
when you got the call direct from Vlad, and it wasn't through Fedotovas, it was in English, right? His English was a lot better than people think it was.
oh, I think he would speak English when it was suited him. I think I heard him, but he never really, very seldom spoke English when I was there. Even when I went to Lithuania a couple of times, which was madness at times, you know. And the first time I met him, oh God, he used to had this big long table, like you know, like what the Russians do. They sit away at the far end, and you know, and he had a board behind me, and he's running up past it, and crosses and arrows and everything, talking about players, and I thought, I can't believe what I've done here, you know. And I said to Billy, just go and enjoy it, and do the best we can because you'll not be long here, you know. In fact, we've just gone to Ibrox. First game should have been 3 or 4 up at half time. Good start though, 1-1. We go to Europe on the Wednesday and get a 1-1 draw, so we've got an away goal to count on. And you come back and you've had all that travelling and hassle and everything. We lose a last minute goal or something to Dundee United. And then he wants to change it. I says, well, it's fine, that's your prerogative, you know, you want to change it, but I knew that was going to happen someday. So just a bit strange that we've had a great result at Europe and that. We bit responsibly, like most teams do for Europe and anyway. So, but we'll be all right on Wednesday as it turns out. They won the second, I think the second leg was what, 5-1 or 5-0 or something.
4-1. Yeah,
So,
5-1 on aggregate.
and then you just find yourself. He didn't want to sack me. He wanted me to become director of football.
At half the cost.
Well, the bottom line was, Mark, that even though he's what, I've had three managers in this short time I was there. I had three directors of football. I said, so that's not a very safe job, And so they said, well, go away and think about coming next month. And I went in and I said, no. And then I said, well, look, let's get the thing sorted out. I've got a manager's contract here, got another year and a bit to go on it. We'll sort that out. Oh no, we're not changing it. I says, what do you mean you're not changing it? I says, so I'm getting the same money as a director of football. And he says, no, you go in half, right? So I says, half. I says, aye. He says, so that's the salary for the director of football. Yeah. I says, well, look, we've got a contract to square up. And he says, it wouldn't. So I thought, wait a minute, I ken what's happening here. He wants me to do a job for my own money, basically. Money that was due me anyway. Mm-hmm. So no costing him anymore. In fact, he's saving money by reducing. It wasn't done for the right reasons. If he'd come out and says, look, you've done great, you've brought players to the team, we won this and we've done this and I'm being happy with the team you've built and I can see you in that director's role and we're just going to sort that out and then put you on exactly. I wasn't complaining about what the director of football was on. It was just the contract. It just made it look as if he was just wanting a way to save money rather than.
Yeah, but what he must have surely been aware that the person that did the negotiating, the legal mind that Chabalazlo hired to get money that he was due, was the same lawyer that you had.
Margaret, yeah, she's terrific. She's a Rottweiler at times when it comes to that. A lovely lady, and she was actually worked for the SFA for as you know in an employment law, where our company was Fraser Wishart used her all the time for any disputes for managers or players, and she's terrific. And of course, when they asked me who my lawyer was, I said same as Chabas, so they knew what they were dealing with. So and Margaret sorted it out fine. I said, look, you can keep your job. You're not. I would love to be director of football at Hearts, but not under you're making it for the wrong reasons. I'd rather you give me the job and because of what I could do and where I could be a strength. I said, I'm not. But if it was done for that reason, you knew you'd probably be there 3 or 4 months and they would sack you, you'd end up with nothing. So it was the wrong way to. But don't get me wrong, there was times that when I liked him. He was very. When I went across there, he couldn't be nicer. He was a decent guy. He was just, unfortunately, he was a little bit mad, probably a big bit mad. But that's the way he was, and you had to accept him. And but they won 2 trophies while he was there. So I suppose at the end of the day, it was a success. And he did save the club at that time. But some of the money he was giving out was just crazy stuff. So
the last part about that, and it's to do with the interviewing, and I'm glad that you come out and you've said that you and Billy discussed at the start. We're not going to be here long. Let's be here for a good time rather than a long time.
Yeah.
Marius Zaliukas, God rest his soul, you were told not to play him at Ibrox. He'd captained the side at Kilmarnock in a 2-2 draw at the end of April 2011. And a few days later, Vlad says, don't play Marius. And then Marius has said to you, yeah, you kind of better not play me because it could make things difficult for me and my family in Lithuania if you play me. You didn't have any centre-backs apart from Marius going into the game, and you ended up having no centre-backs. I think Morovic played at centre-back. So at which point did the meddling just become too much from Vlad?
Well, I remember that was an early kick-off. We were meeting at the Orium early, and I got the call from Sergius Fetitovis to say that I'd been instructed not to play Mari. I says, but he's the only centre half I've got. The others are injured. I have to play him. I'm already playing a midfield player out of position alongside him. If I do that, I've got to take another midfield. That's not their position. I'm going to Ibrox. And I says, I'm not going to do it. And then I phoned actually, I think I phoned Zaluk John Cahoon to say I'm just at a call. I says, but I'm not going. I'm going to play him. And I think Marius had spoke to John and said, look, let me safer if you don't play him. I says, why? He says, well, you know what it's like in these. I says, so I had to speak to Marius, and he says, listen, I know what it's like. He says, you're best to go on. So I've got to go to Ibrox. We're playing with two boys. So I've never played centre half in their life. We're
Do
playing
you
that.
remember who they were?
Yeah, one was Morovic,
And the other?
was the Icelandic boy.
Egert Jonsson. That was your two centre backs.
The two centre halves. And I think Egert had done it as a stand-in during a game once or something like that. But
Ah,
never.
but he got sent off after 61 minutes.
So ended up, that's right. And we ended up getting beat 4-0 or something like that. And this is a crazy thing. I get on the bus and coming home, and somebody says, Mr. Roman wants to know what happened today. I says, what happened today? I says, I could tell him what happened today. Tell him that I'm fucking playing without any fucking centre halves. Right? He left me without any. So don't ask why we got beat today. You could easily work that out. So that was the start of, something that he always had to have something. I think he was trying to get something started that would maybe cause it for a different reason. I think he did that. But there was one time that we were flying. We had 31 points out of 33. We were flying, and we played Celtic, and the press made a big hype about us being in there challenging for the title. And we went to Parkhead, and Celtic were unbelievable that night. I think all that hype in the press about Hearts and this.
Is that the 4-0 Celtic win?
No, Celtic, it's the best I've ever seen Celtic play, and they were terrific. And Marius Kello was superb, but he blamed them for the defeat. Thinks the goalkeeper had a bet, maybe something on the goal. I said, you're kidding me. But this seemed to be in there. And I think, unknown to me, I found out later on that he'd actually questioned him and had him at his hotel way early hours in the morning, and when we had a match the next day. I think that was that's what I was told anyway. And it was just absolute nonsense. I think he still blamed him for that result. And I have to say that was not on the cards. I think even Marius had said he would take a lie detector test. And I think he ended up having to do that to satisfy him. So listen, as I say, there's a lot of times I got on fine with him. You had to learn how to handle him. You had to learn to take things with a pinch of salt. But like every single manager that he would have there wouldn't have any long-term plan because he just wouldn't allow that. That's the way he was. He's just, as I say, and yet the strange thing, every time I was over there, he was always pleasant, nice. His wife was a lovely person. She was always very welcoming in terms of looking after things to make sure you're enjoying it and all that sort of stuff. And he invited me a couple of times even to games at Scotland. Remember Scotland played over there when they drew 0-0, and where the meeting was over with Neil Doncaster and all that. And we couldn't go to a hotel because it's full of Heart supporters. Scotland supporters.
Scotland fans.
And he says, right, we'll go back to my office. And I was at the office many times, but this was the office, which was above above the boardroom office that I used to go to. It was a penthouse off the place, and it was well done. Had a periscope in the middle of the floor, and it looked out. You could look out onto the streets of the thing, and oh jeez. And I remember one thing. He's got this glass cabinet, not very high, and he's got a submarine in it, and I'm standing watching it with Doncaster, and he comes across and he says, "My submarine," and I says to him, just for us get a bit of laugh, I says, "How did you get in there?" And he was serious. He went, "No, this is just a model," as if I was.
Didn't get sarcasm.
Oh, Jesus. I'm wasting my time here, you know.
Oh,
But
he was some boy. He really was.
there was
Um,
another guy there. Who was the guy that was in charge of the big sponsors we had? William Hills. He had
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, William Hill sponsored the league for a while.
That's right. And the boy that was the Scots boy that was in, was he not president or vice president of? He took us down to Neil and I down to a game at, because the company had a box at Arsenal at the Emirates,
Right.
and we went to watch a game one night, and he looked after us really well. I'll try and mind his name. He was in. I think a couple of years later he left. I think so.
We're gonna end with a quick 5 question quiz about your Hearts managerial career, and then 20 questions, quick fire, submitted by the fans. So the quiz is pretty simple. In your first spell at Hearts, who played the most for you and who scored the most for you?
And first spell at Hearts,
Mm-hmm.
he played the most for me.
Mm-hmm.
You talking appearances in?
Mm-hmm. Competitive games.
I would say, well, couldn't have been played in there. Maybe even Gary Locke. No, he was injured. Sorry, David Weir. David Weir.
Second was Gilles Rousset. First was Steve Fulton.
Steve. Steve. Played every. Through. I was counting. He was out for injury for a while, but so was his
Uh,
others. Steve.
Played most.
Okay.
Who scored the most goals for you in your first spell?
And the first spell, most goals, probably Jim Hamilton, Stephen Adam.
Nope. Robbo was second with 39.
Was he?
Colin Cameron, 47
For a
goals.
midfield, for a midfield player.
Midfield.
Never
It's
thought. Of
frightening.
course, I'm counting
Same.
a year. It's over the time I was there, 5 years.
Aye. Same question for your second spell. Who played the most for you and who scored the most for you?
Say that again. When you second spell, second
Uh-huh.
spell.
Second spell in charge. So
Who played
which
more?
player who played more games? There were two of them joint. Played the most appearances and which player scored the most goals for you in your second spell?
Must have been Zariukas, is it? He was regular. No,
It was Egert Jonsson and David Templeton with 50.
is it? God,
Aye. And who scored the most goals?
for me that time. Uh,
Not really a surprise.
Scatchell, Robertson,
Yep.
Scatchell,
Scatchell.
Scatchell.
Rudy Scatchell with 13. And the final question, over your 2 spells in charge combined, which team did you beat on more occasions than anyone else in competitive games?
Hibs.
No. No. 11 wins over Hibs, but not as many as
The team that
14.
14 was the highest, and the team we beat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would be Motherwell.
Nearly.
Motherwell.
They were second with 12.
Thought Motherwell always did well against. I couldn't.
Aberdeen, 14 wins.
Well, I did some had a good record against Aberdeen, right enough.
Did. Aberdeen 14, Motherwell and Kilmarnock 12, Hibs and
Yeah,
Dundee United
yeah.
11. And finally, let's do some quick fire questions. 20 questions submitted by the fans. If you had the chance to go back and relive any Edinburgh derby you were part of, either as a player or a manager, and you can either change the result or just enjoy it all over again, which one would it be?
The first one I enjoyed when we beat 1-4, 4-1 or 4-0, I think. It was when they were getting their stand built at the time, and we played, and I think Mickey had beat Jim Leighton from about 30 yards out. Yeah, a great shot. That was I enjoyed that game. I can tell you a true story. We played, Jim Duffy was the manager. We played Hibs at Tynecastle. Great atmosphere. We scored 2 goals very early on. Cameron had hit the bar. with a header in the 6-yard box. And I said to Billy at that time, I said, if that head goes in, this is our best chance to score over 7 goals. Because we were, Jim said it, Jim Duffy was said, Hearts murdered us. They could have been out of sight in the first half, and they fought back in the second half and got a 2-2 draw. That was one game I would have wished that I think it was Colin Cameron hit the bar, and I think Stevie Fulton hit the post as well. And that was all in the first 15 minutes. And I think if we'd got that third goal, we would have gone on to score a lot that day. But that's the one game I would have probably changed.
I wondered if you would have said the 7-0 when you played in.
I forget that.
Good answer.
I didn't know I was playing till late on because one of the players went down. There was a lot of theories about that, but went down and played there. In fact, the funny thing was, if you look at the game, we had 2 fantastic chances. Eric Carruthers had a chance to put us 1-0 up, but Hibs were fantastic that day. Great team they had.
Right, that's enough praise. We can't be having that at the end of our let's praise Jim Jefferies.
They were good that day, but
Question 2.
The one I probably enjoyed most was because I didn't think what ball was in the net. We had played them really well. Colin Calderwood was the manager, and we really played well. And Hibs defended great that day, but I thought he missed it at the back post. Gary Glenn had just missed the same chance. He didn't make proper contact with the ball, and then the same cross came in from Novakovic. I put him on as sub. No, I took him off, and I think it was Andy Dyer or vice versa that put over. And Big Kevin scored at the back post against Mark Brown, and I thought he had missed it. As I turned round the Ross, I seen Kevin running away, and the joy in everybody's face was just amazing. So that sticks a wee bit in the memory, you know.
Brilliant. Question 2. You scored 6 goals for Hearts. How many of them do you remember?
6, was it? About 6. I didn't think it was as many as that. The best one was one from about 35 yards where I hit against Fulham in the Texaco Cup.
35 yards?
Easy 35 yards.
Wow.
It was right out of the blue. And actually,
that was your first Hearts goal?
But the boy who scored for Fulham that night was a boy called Alan Lowe, or sort of Lough, I think, and he hit one from the same 30 yards in the top corner as well. And the game finished 1-1 that night. But yes, I got a goal.
That was 2-2. That was 2-2 that game.
2-2. I got a couple against Aberdeen when we won.
You did.
2-1 night, and I got up at St Johnston.
Yep.
When we won the league, for the first division with Bobby Monka. Was the other 2 own goals, were they?
No. You scored against Kilmarnock in the Premier Division in a 4-0 win at Tynecastle, February 77.
Right, I did, yeah. I got one.
And you scored against
Airdrie.
Airdrie was the other one. Most of your goals were at Tynecastle. Only one was at Muirton Park against St Johnston. Yeah. Question 3 is a good one. In either of your spells in charge of Hearts, who was the best player you almost signed, but the club couldn't get it over the line?
When I was at
Hearts, either spell.
Who was the one that I couldn't get it over the line?
The best player that you thought, yes, I've got him, and then the club just couldn't get it done.
Well, they couldn't get it done. Was it a foreign player?
No. This is just you. Was there anybody that you? There's no right answer. This is in either of your spells in charge. Was there one player you thought you'd signed, and then it didn't materialize for whatever reason, and you were like, could have had him as well?
No, this is true. I went to watch. I got a tip off about a player in Norway, and I went. The agent contacted me, so I went over and watched him. And I thought, not bad. So watched him a couple of times, and the next time I went, I says, "What do you think?" I says, "I think he'll do me good. I fancy him." So I went to I've got an agent to try and find out what the club were wanting, and they were wanting £150,000, which was a lot of money at that time. But we were getting a bit of success, you know. And Chris was honest. He says, "Look, Jim, I probably couldn't do that." But if you can keep an eye on him, and we'll work towards trying to get something. So I says, okay, I'll go. And I'd already met the player, agreed terms with the agent, met his family, and I went over again the following week. And in the stadium was Graham Souness, was sitting with, remember, an agent that was banned from Runa Hoja when he was involved with George Graham. But his nephew was running the business there, and he was sitting with Graham. I remember Billy Cook was there that night. He was manager at Dundee United at the time, so he was at the game. And when we were in the same hotel, it was Billy. I'd gone away to meet the player again, and Billy says, "Where are you going?" I says, "Oh, I'll be back." He says, "Oh, you got something on?" And that. So I got a call on the. I come back on the Monday. Chris said, "How'd you get on?" I says, "Oh, can we not get him?" And he said, "We're working towards it, so just try and keep him sweet." So the agent phoned me on Tuesday, and he said, "You've lost him." I said, "What?" He says, "Lost him." He says, "He's gone." And listen to this. He says, "He's gone for £750,000 to Southampton." Because that's where Graham Souness was managing. His name was Eagle Ustenstad, who went to Rangers after Blackburn Rovers and then Rangers. And that I had him when he was playing for Stavanger, Viking Stavanger, watching him, and could have had him. And I was a bit, because he would have been perfect for Scottish football, but Graham had the money and the thing with there. Makes you a bit wonder though when the club were going to get 150,000 for him, and they agreed that.
Right.
170, 750 was just unbelievable. So, but that was one, and also one that maybe you'll know a wee bit more about. I tried to get Craig Burley before he left. When he left Celtic, they went to Ringway, because I met him one time in Portugal, and I said that we'd have been like to have had you, but you had made your move, and that was it. So, but Zostenstad was the one that I really, really was a bit, close to getting, and it was all about timing. If we'd paid when I first got him, we'd had him for 15, could have sold them on for millions. Who knows?
I think there was a little bit in the press at the time about that. And look, I work with Craig now, and he would have loved to have come to Hearts, but Derby were there and offered him a decent deal. So that's.
We could have matched that. Of course, we could. It was the only thing he did, but we've got a lot of respect for him. He's a good player.
Who was scarier, you or Billy?
Billy never used to give me any problem in the dressing room with players. He left that more up to me. Billy's problem was the dugout. He always gets involved in the other dugout. And I think a lot of it's to do. He's so passionate that he gets over. And if they've got the ball and they want, especially if the team's winning and he wants to get the ball back and play quickly, he gets involved in fights and pushes and shoves. I have a big job with him on that side of things, but it's all because he's just so into it in a big way. But he was never. He knew that. I suppose that's where he knew that it was better coming for the manager in there. But maybe sometimes I would say to him, I says, right, you get. We had a wee bit of a balance, right? That if he gave them a row, then I had to pick them up. If it was me, he would have to pick them up. And that's what you've got to do. It's just about working together. That's why we're a good relationship, We've kept each other since we were at primary school. So
Brilliant.
It was good.
Question 5. Was there one player you managed that you wish you could have got a little bit more out of?
One player I managed that could have got a bit more out of. Difficult one. Is that you talk about at Hearts?
All these are at Hearts.
Hearts. Funny enough, one you mentioned earlier, and he did well for me. He liked playing with big Kevin Kyle. I thought Templeton could have been really, really good for Hearts at the time. He was He was so tricky, great feet, could beat a person, gets on. I just wish he had that devilment to want to be at the top. I think he had a lot of ability. I think he had a lot more ability than he believed he had, you know. And he's somebody that should have had longer career at a higher level, I think.
Mm.
But as far as everybody else is concerned, I thought I got, the best they could to do successful. But maybe I like the. I don't think he think I rate him because I'm sometimes on his back a couple of times about what get to take people on and things like that, because that was his strength. He was a clever player and very, very difficult to tie down. But yeah, there's one or two younger boys. Gary Glenn could have maybe he was tipped to be the next good youngster coming through again. Shame because he had the ability and Anaki scoring goals, but never really had a great career out of it.
Question 6. How good was Rudy Scatchell?
I was a bit worried when I went to. I knew that Romanov wanted him back. My worry was he coming back just for a payday, and he'd left the club and gone into big clubs, and then could he? Nevermore was I so wrong, because when he came in, he trained great. He was always there, and good type. Really, not what I first had imagined him. And I loved working with him, and it was great. And one of the first messages I got when I had my heart attack when I came out of hospital, and he was in America at the time, and he sent me. I've still got it, and sent me a lovely text message and everything like that. So got really. I'll tell you. I think what turned it for us both was he scored 2 goals. I think we were 2-0 down to St Mirren. I think we should have been 5 or 6, to be honest with you. We had a terrible first half. And I made 3 changes at half time. And I made, no, 3, and we got back to 2. Rudy had scored the 2 goals. And I says, come on, we need to get a hat trick. And he says to me at half time, Gaffer, I have never scored at the Gorgie end. Do you know that?
Oh, that's right.
He had never scored a goal at the Gorgie end.
All these goals were up the other end.
And he scored 2 at that end to make it 2-2. And he got the winner at the Gorgie end. That after speaking about it at half time, he then goes on and gets the goal. And the first thing then he came across when he got the goal, and he was so delighted to have scored at the goal, and not just scored, but scored a hat trick, and it was his winning goal. And he was over the moon. And then
Amazing.
we sort of got on really well because he was good player, better player than I thought than at that stage of his career. I thought maybe is he just because he was excellent in his first spell under Burley and that. He was a terrific player. But no, he was good, lovely guy. Still, I think he's still in America. He does.
Yeah, he's still over here. Question 7. Was it a difficult decision not to bring Robbo on in the cup final of '98?
Listen, nobody would have been. John, we always have this wee thing. Some people think John did hint that a little bit that he was happy for to just, if we didn't want to make the change at the time. I thought about him for the last 5 minutes, just holding the ball, because he was good at that. He was intelligent, could take it. But throwing him into there where Rangers were, coming at us with all guns blazing, trying to get it back to level. Because I think if it had gone into extra time, or it would have been tough for us. He would have definitely been on the park if we'd gone into extra time, because some of the guys were running empty. Probably didn't have enough subs then. But there's always this little nagging when you're there. You've got a tough decision to make. Do you change it? Who do you take off? Is that person you take off? We just felt Rangers were giving it all and were they causing us bother. Pressure, yes, and you're always thinking something could happen. But they were getting desperate. They were firing shots from 20, 30 yards outside the box, way into the stand, and everything that came in, Davy Weir, Paul Ritchie, great in the air, Jim Hamilton. We defended Weir like it was our last game. It was terrific. And we just didn't want to change it. And of course, the most important thing is what John appreciated was that he'd been all these years at Hearts, he'd had all these Heartaches, he never had a winner's medal, and he got one. And his career deserved that. And if there's one person who did deserve it more than anybody else, and I've got to say it's John Robertson, given his record and what he had done, especially against Hibs and all these unbelievable goals that he scored. In fact, Robbo gave me, I've got a gold thing frame that Robbo gave me that gives me every goal he scored when he was it 100 goals or something, or he broke a record or something. And
he broke Jimmy Wardhaw's
Jimmy
league
Ward,
goal scoring record.
so it's all engraved in a sort of bronze plate, things like that, all the games and the goals he scored and the teams he played against. And I've got it in the house. And he gave me that as, because everybody thought that we were, we got to find and we still do, still keep in touch.
Question 8. Did you ever have the chance to sign Vinnie Jones, Stan Collymore, or Thomas Brolin?
All three. I wanted to sign them. Not Brolin had an offer, I think, from Leeds at the time, or had just left Leeds or something. And we tried to get him. He turned up, actually. We arranged to meet, but he turned up a day early and just wanted to see the place because he turned up at the ground. Chris phoned me and he says, I've got Thomas Boss. He says, I'm seeing him tomorrow. He says, yeah, but he's just come. He's just wanting to see somebody will show him around the ground and everything like that. And he did. I never really got a chance to meet him because he just decided to go elsewhere or back to Sweden or something like that. Stan Collymore came up and played as a trialist for Fulham in a pre-season friendly against us. He was outstanding. And I phoned his agent the next day to say, does he fancy a crack at Scottish football? And that obviously late in his career. It turns out I did get to manage him because he was in the Bradford squad when I went down. We had a laugh about it, saying that he said he thought long about it, but it might be something different, but he had 2 or 3 good offers from down south that we couldn't match. And the other one was
Vinnie Jones.
No, Vinny phoned me saying that he could do a job for us and all this sort of things. And I thought that would just be, I just couldn't handle that, I don't think. So, no, he phoned up, he says, listen, I'll come and do your turn and all this. He was looking for a club to play for. So I never made any move to sign him. Definitely Colin Moore had a wee dabble, if you like, because he played really well against us in that pre-season friendly when he was only on trial with Fulham. And that's why we tried to just make a cheeky sort of attempt to get him, but that didn't work out. Brolin was something that never really came to anything, got down to the nitty gritty, But I thought
you spoke about Egil Ostenstad. There was also a suggestion that maybe as a youngster, Eidur Gudjonsson was a possibility. Was there ever anything in that?
No, I never was involved in that sort of thing. Wasn't me.
Okay.
It was.
We spoke earlier, question 9, we spoke earlier about Henry Smith and you brought him back in for the Dundee game. That was his last game. How on earth did you find Gilles Rousset?
Strange. Got an email in, just a reference email thing, just saying this player was available for. So, and I looked at the track record and I'm saying he's 6'6" or 6 feet out. He's played he's got 2 international caps. He played at Wembley when Alan Shearer made his debut. And his other game was in Casablanca against Morocco. Played at Lyon, Rennes, Sochaux. He's 33 or something at the time. And I thought, is this guy, has he got one arm or something? How's he available? And so anyway, I made a contact, and this guy that I knew that helped me get Pasquale, he must have seen this thing on my desk, and he's contacted him on my behalf. He says, you tell me you're interested in Giles. He says, yeah, I've spoke to him. He says, oh, what? He says, he's coming over. I've got him coming over. So Mike Morris was his name, the agent. I think he's struggling at the moment, illness-wise, or passed away or something. Anyway, Mike was big friends with Pasquale. That's how I got him. And I got Gilles over in a chat, fine. And I says, before the game was at Falkirk, and he had trained with us, and I says to Paul Haggerty, I says, listen, take a young team round to Roseburn. I'm going to give you this goalkeeper, I says, that we've had on trial. I want you to play a wee practice match, but I want you to play in this wee kick about 20 minutes or so, and let me know what you think about Gilles, talking wise about, just for communicating in that, because he obviously didn't speak up great English. Because I was thinking about him for tomorrow. And I said, take them round, I'll be round once we get organised here, because on a Friday you just do very little with the first team, just warm up. So Billy took them and I went round. And here Paul Haggerty is standing on the touchline. The game's gone ahead. So I walks across and says, listen, Paul, I thought I told you to play. He says, I have. And this is a guy who used to run to Muirhouse for the training, right? Fit as any, running marathons, everything. He never had a nousy fat. He was always, never, when he did his own training routines round here. And yet he says, I couldn't last 15 minutes playing in a wee practice game because it's stop, start, whereas all the run. I says, how do you? He says, well, when I was on, he says, he was all right, but he says, I don't know how enough to recommend you to play him. So I had a decision to make after watching him playing in that. And I thought, well, Henry had come out of retirement and helped me do that. And so it was between him and him. And of course, I had let the chairman know I was decided I was going to play him. He didn't know it. So when I went to the game, Leslie Deans had come forward with a tape in the team bus. And I thought, oh, he's going to put the Heart song on, because we used to do that a lot, here, HEARTS and all that sort of thing. Because we got to near the ground. Was it hell? It was bloody the French national anthem on the tape. And of course, that right away alerted Henry that he wasn't going to be playing. So he's caused me a big problem there, because Henry's face was, a picture. He says, and Henry's exact words was, I can hear it all now, right? Because he knew he wasn't going to be playing, and Gilles was playing, because he wouldn't have played that. So ended up having to play Gilles, who was brilliant on the day. We had to sign him. He was fantastic. We got lost 2-1, but he was brilliant on the day. And he turned out to be a fantastic goalkeeper for us. And I still, to this day, keep in touch with him.
Such a nice guy, isn't he?
Oh, great. Some great stories about him. I think there's a boy, just shortly, I'm due to go to Tynecastle, because there's a boy in a book. He's wrote a book about goalkeepers only.
Yeah, Grant Young.
Yeah, and he wants me to, he's got Craig and Jamie McDonald there, and he wants me to go along because I've worked with Jim Cruikshank and Gilles Rousset, and he wanted maybe a couple of stories with him, so I'll keep them for that night.
No, good.
Because he's a good lad. I think he's on his way. He's making moves to go to live in Portugal, I think, now.
Okay.
So, but great lad, great person.
Aside from the 1998 Scottish Cup final, what's your best memory of being Hearts manager?
Being the Hearts manager, apart from the final.
If you can't choose that as your best moment as a Hearts manager, what would you choose?
Just the privilege of being in there. I think the fact that I look back on my record and say that, after 2 years of struggling to stay in that league to the last game of the season, to go the next year in a cup final and in a position to go into Europe was a massive turnaround. And in the 5 years there, you reached 3 cup finals, and then you played in 3 European tournaments that top teams just managed to pip us. I look back and the whole thing as a bigger picture rather than any individual thing, and say that, I've been a very lucky to be brought up as a Hearts supporter, loved going to the games, played for the club for a good number of under seven managers, and two opportunities to. So Hearts have been really my life, and something that you can always look back on with great pride rather than, because nothing beats the cup final day. Nothing beats that in terms of a match. Uh, as I say, the only other times are when we it was great when we qualified for Europe because that's what the fans love. They like to go on good trips and things like that. So they were special moments as well when we qualified. I think the good one was when we beat Hibs once 2-1 when that Gary McSwiggan flicked a header in the back post to put us in Europe, and the joy in the faces of only because it was against Hibs that got us there, and plenty for them to rub into. So these are all moments that you look back on. But as a whole, Hearts has been my life, and I can say at least I contributed in a big way.
You sure did. Question 11. Can you see many similarities between this Hearts team under Derek McInnes and the one you managed that won the cup in 97-98?
Yeah, I'm not saying it. It's not me saying it. Somebody caught me in the golf club the other couple of weeks ago and says, "Oh, have you seen what's on the internet?" Said Derek's a new Jim Jefferies, So, and I says, "What are you?" He says, "Well, he's got the players." I think Derek for the other managers had tough thing. I think their philosophies at times were very difficult for them because a lot of the time now, not just them, but managers set out at least to try not to lose the game. I think Derek's one of those managers likes to try and go and win the game from day one, and he sets his team out to do that. Okay, he might change it if he's in front, become a bit more, which is fine as long as it works. But no, he knows the Scottish game. He's done extremely well to start with. He's coming at the right time because obviously there's a lot of money being put into this new system of finding players. I wouldn't say that everyone works, but if more work than not, because he's got some good players that have, if they have come through that system, and I think he's got a really good squad to do really well this year, especially as Rangers and Celtic are nowhere near what they used to be. And I think Hearts are in for a really good season. And it's good to see that we've got a Scottish manager who I think should have been in maybe before that he knows the game, he knows Scottish, he knows how his teams to play, and I think he'll do really well for the club.
Question 12. Who was your favourite Hearts player to manage and who caused you the most headaches?
Who was the most?
Who was your favourite player to manage? Someone that never gave you any hassle, you loved being his manager, and who was the one that made you pull your hair out?
Pasquale.
For both.
Well, I'll tell you why, because we still keep in regular touch. And when he's over, he comes out. Pasquale was a great player. He's past his best when he came to us, but what he did for Alan McManus and Paul Ritchie, talking to him, and Paul Ritchie was never quoted before I was there, and God, he ended up player of the year, young player of the year, Scottish good mood play for him. And a lot of that was down to Pasquale, just sitting between the two of them, talking to them and things like that. He was great about the dressing room, though he wasn't everybody's cup of tea because he was a bit flash at times and that. But he caused me nightmares, right? Because Chris would come to me and say, "Look, we've got a problem." I said, "What is it?" He says, "Pasquale." He says, "Oh." He says, "He's in the Cali Hotel." I said, "Well, you put him there, you get a special deal, do you not?" He says, "Yeah." But he's in the a la carte restaurant every night, right? And the bills are just getting out of hand. So I said, "Okay, I'll have a word with him." So I goes to Pasquale, "Fine, you're in a Cali, but could you know maybe eat out sometimes or just because you're going into the a la carte every night?" I says, "And clubs it's costing us a fortune." "No problem, Jimmy. No problem." He used to call me Jimmy. No problem, boss Jim. no problem, boss. So a couple of months later, Chris came back to me and says, got a problem. I says, what? He says, with Pasquale. What is it now? He says, put him back in the Cali, he says, on the restaurant because it's cheaper in the Cali than it is. Because he went to the Bar Roma, but he brought about 8 or 9 friends with him every time he went. And all the Italians said, he paid for everything. He paid for the drink and the fee. And he says the bills are bigger in the Bar Roma than there in the Cali. So I had to have a word with him. I used to always used to think going every morning. So I wonder what Pasquale's been up to last night. Great to have had him for the time I did.
Yeah.
But loved him. He fitted the bill as you said. Who did you like that caused you the most problems would be Pasquale. But here's one for you as well. There was a lot said when I stopped the team going to their Christmas party and after Kilmarnock beat us 3-0 and they were all planning to go and I stopped it and I said I would. They're in training the next day. Some of them even came to training the next day because they were going to go down to Newcastle after it. I said, no, you're not. I said, because you're in here tomorrow morning as well. You're not off. You're not going to delay it and put another time. I says, and some of them were very upset about it. One or two of them did take the huff a bit. We went out there and we put them through a real tough session in the track, made them sure that, this hurts getting beat 3-0 at Kilmarnock and we're not going to, it's not acceptable. And you're certainly not going down to celebrate Christmas after that. What if their supporters see you going on the train and away in the morning? I said, no way, you're in. And he came across to me at Pasquale and he says, that's the best decision you'll ever make. He says, and the training you gave us was spot on, the right thing to do. And he says, I've been in big clubs with Juventus and all that thing. He says, that was excellent. And you sent me a message. We went on and we won the next 5 games, right? And I got the club to pay for them, the flights down to London and a hotel to spend a weekend and told them that's what you get for success, not failure. And they all loved it. They all went down, hotel, paid there. There was only 2 people didn't make it. I think they were still in a wee bit of a huff, but that didn't bother me. The whole squad loved it. And we won 5 games and it taught them a lesson that you will be rewarded for success, but you won't be rewarded for failure.
There's that man management.
Yep.
Again. Question 13. I'm allowing you to give any player that you managed at Hearts in their prime to Derek McInnes to challenge for the title this season. Who are you giving them?
Say that again. Just broke up.
Any player you want from who you managed during your 2 spells, you can give to Derek McInnes to be in this Hearts squad in their prime. Which player are you giving Derek to try and help with this title challenge?
Oh, there'd be so many. I mean,
you're only allowed one.
Only allowed one. If I had to pick somebody who I think over all the years I had, I mean, just obviously players that play for Hearts.
For you, yeah.
Not Kilmarnock or Falkirk or anything like that. No.
Got to be at Hearts.
Got to be at Hearts. Well, that would have to be the man that you said played the most games.
Stevie Fulton.
Because he could put the ball on a sixpence with that fabulous left foot. They used to criticise him because he was, actually Stevie was quite quick. It just stamina-wise, wasn't he? But he never wanted him to do an awful lot of that. He could put the ball. That's why Cameron scored the number of goals he did. Because when he made runs forward, he knew he was getting the ball 9 times out of 10 and getting it on a plate. McCann knew that he was going to get the right ball where it was outside of the foot in between the fullbacks. Now, Stevie was just a genius with the ball. When everybody's cup of tea, but I'll tell you, he would make. And actually, he didn't play in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup the year we won it because he was injured. and we missed him
Right.
that day. We missed him. But I'll tell you, if I bet the other one would have been close, would have been David Weir. He's a fantastic boy. But I would say Stevie for ability to make a team play and be better would be Stevie for without a doubt.
Nearly there. Question 14. Was there an unsung hero during your time as manager? Maybe a player you think didn't quite get the recognition that you felt they deserved?
Didn't get this recognition, was it?
These are all questions from Hearts supporters. Good questions as well.
Good questions, yeah. Is there any player that you said didn't get the recognition?
Yeah, like an unsung hero, someone you loved having as a manager, but you just felt they deserved more praise than they actually got. Someone that did a lot of the dirty work or hard work or anything like that.
Well, I think they all got great response. They all got great responses from. Give me a second. You there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think. I think. I think they'll go Spence. I couldn't think of anybody who didn't get the
Maybe
maybe
the credit from elsewhere, not so much the credit in the club, but someone you always felt never kind of got that
recognition.
recognition from outside of the football club, but someone that was just so important to the
I
way
think
you
I'd rather answer that and say that it was somebody who wouldn't have missed out on the recognition would be a better way to put it. Missed
Yeah,
out
yeah,
on it,
that's the question. That's the question.
right? And that would be because Gary Locke, because of injury.
Mm-hmm.
Because Gary Locke would have went on big time to be a terrific player. If we'd kept him at Hearts, he would have played for years and years. I turned down, or Chris turned down, we both turned down. The bank would have cracked up with it because it was very early on. At that time, we got offered over £1 million for Gary Locke.
From
Just
who?
we got injured for Coventry City. We turned it down. And the bank didn't know that, I don't think, at the time, because we couldn't afford, because we made the decision, if you want to get better, you can't lose your best players. So you're telling the fans that you're wanting a manager to come in. If you sell them and you need the money, fine. But you're going to make it being successful harder. So I think he that's it. You there still?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think he would have been. He missed out due to the injuries with the cup final and the cup winning when he was still captain. I thought the recognition that he missed out of was a big loss for a player. That the fans lost it, rather than somebody that I can't really go through who didn't.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's
But
a good answer.
I think he would have been deserving being bigger respect. They love him now. I mean, he's
Oh,
such
yeah.
a great character. But because he's what he's been through, he missed out a lot of caps. Probably another big move, or if not, a long time at Hearts.
Question 15. What was the best decision you ever made as Hearts manager?
Best decision.
Mm-hmm.
The best decision I made as a Hearts manager.
Plenty
I
to
think
choose
so
from.
many. I think the best decision was down to two. I think, as I mentioned earlier, getting Stevie Fulton for a straight swap for David Hagan. No disrespect to David Hagan, I like David Hagan, but I've just teamed that. That was a great decision to get Stevie, because he went on to do well. And again, you could say that about two or three others, but the one that probably I would say that I really was happy with was when we let Brian Hamilton and Craig Nelson go for David Weir. I thought they were two massive, big players for him, and it was good decisions to go and get them. But I could say that about one or two others that were really good. Difficult
Yeah.
to say the best decision. Then you could argue say the best decision and then was to pick the cup final team because it was the
Right.
in the cup. So, aye, it's not an easy one to say because there's a lot of things that could come under that question.
Sure. That kind of covers your best signing at Hearts as well. That was question 16. So question 17, which player surpassed even your wildest expectation of him? Whether it was someone you brought in, someone at the club, someone who was just way beyond what you thought that they would ever achieve, but they just were incredible for you.
Um, I was very disappointed to lose Neil McCann at the time. He was terrific, did great for the Hearts, and great pace, great attitude, winner in training, difficult to play against, wanted to win badly, great spirit about him for somebody who was quite strong for his physique. You know, he wasn't the most robust and never seen. He was so quick. But he was a player I thought that, you know, went on to do really well, and I liked him. Liked his attitude towards the game, and he still, as I say, you know, I thought he was a big part of the team that was successful.
3 to go. Question 18. What do you think of Jamestown Analytics and the involvement with Hearts?
Well, at first I thought, well, you know, when you look at the thing and say, well, you know, they were looking like me that they were done fantastically well buying players at 8, 9, 10 million pounds and then selling them on for 50, 60. I couldn't imagine that happening at a club like Hearts. You know, if any player's worth 5, 8, 10 million, they're probably not going to come to Hearts. But I think you've learned through time that it's not all about, they don't do it all the time at 10 million, 11 million, selling them on for 60. I think if Hearts were getting players maybe at 200,000 or 300,000 and then selling them on for a couple of million would be majorly good and reinvest that in the team. So you've got, time will tell. I think they've, you know, again, you'll not get, I think there's some a couple of players that have come through, they've never really stamped their authority at the club. I think it's a case of, but you can't knock it because the Hearts are doing well, and if the 2 or 3 players that I've got at the moment came through that system, then hopefully it'll go on and continue and they'll be successful. So not against it. I'm just hoping it does well and proves. But the only thing I've got against it is that they don't meet the player, they don't speak to the player. The players there, they've not really met. I never used to sign a player, but that was, things have changed now. But I never signed a player unless I spoke to them, and because you maybe know the characters, and maybe they'll maybe have some boys who fail, you know. So because they don't know their character and that, but seemingly they check all that out. Seemingly they go quite far back in dealing with people that's been in their lives. So good luck to them, and I hope it goes well.
Question 19. What did the Scottish Cup win of 1998 mean to Jim Jefferies, the Hearts fan, rather than Jim Jefferies, the Hearts manager?
I've been a supporter all my life, and I said to the players, if you pull this off, you will never believe how you will be received, treated for the rest of your lives if you manage to do it. Because you'll be the first team to do it in 40 odd years. And I know, because I'm a supporter, I know what they're thinking out there. I know I've been to games and as a kid and growing up, I know what they're like. And this is something that's, you know, with all the disappointment that I've had over the years. I look on that on the fan side, not the manager side, that I knew what it meant to the supporters, and I wanted to do it, not just for the players and everybody at Connect Club, but mostly for the fans because of what they had gone through in '86 and all that. So without doubt, that's what meant to me. That's why I held that trophy up 6 or 7 times that you're about in that bus. It was just because I've got so much, what's the word, satisfaction of doing it for them, because that's what I said to the players. I wanted them to tell them what it'd be like. And I think you could multiply it by 100. It was even better than I thought, you know.
Brilliant. And
Things like
final
you come
question.
along with people on the fire engine, the police with
Yeah,
things.
it's like hell.
You can't, yes, exactly. You just cannot. And that's what I said to, that's what I was trying to get to him at the start of the week before the game, and it all came true. And that's the bit that pleases me most.
Brilliant. Question 20. Now, I feel this is the right question to be the last question. Where would Heart of Midlothian Football Club be without the foundation of Hearts and Anne Budge?
Struggling because the foundation got together. I think I was involved in some of the chats with a boy called Alex Mackey and Brian Cormack and one or two others. I was at a meeting when uh, I couldn't attend anymore because I got the Dunfermline job, and Alec phoned me to ask me about one or two things that I had to watch what I do because I didn't want to give away any confidentiality about players' monies and things like that. But he wanted me to go to the meeting, and Budge was at the meeting. That's the only time I met her because after that meeting, I got the Dunfermline job, and I didn't think it was right for me to go and help Hearts. And when I've got another club to think about, because somebody would just come up with something bad about, why is he there and doing this when he's a Dunfermline. So I met her first time. Anne Budge has done one fantastic job, and she's had a lot of criticism. And I've told her, I've spoken to her when I worked for her for a wee while. She's fantastic. She should get nothing but praise for the way the club is now, because I was there when it wasn't, behind the scenes as fantastic as it is now with what she's done, this new stadium, the marketing side, the people who work there and everything she's got right. Maybe one or two football decisions, which is often said is not her forte in terms of that. She has to rely on others to do that. And maybe that's the bit that's clouded everything, because that's one of the most important things is more on the football side. They would take nothing away from Anne regarding where the club is now in stature in terms of facilities and training ground and everything. It's massive now, and she must take a lot of credit for it. And she can look back and say that because that's taken them to a level that has allowed them to get in. And the foundation have just got stronger and stronger. And when you've got a club ploughing in something like £130,000 on a monthly basis, the days of where you were struggling to get money, like I talked earlier about trying to get money for a player at that time, is maybe a thing of the past now. So they're in good hands, and the foundation have got representatives on the board that you keep them posted with things. But I think the fans will play a big part in it. And it's hard work, because I think there's a great team of people at the foundation who are constantly having to monitor, people's circumstances changing. Money might not be available for them that was before, and so there's always people might drop off, and you always get new people either investing in the club or existing ones putting in a little bit more, and that's not easy in these times now when things are hard. So the foundation's doing a great one, and they're definitely needed. But Anne Budge had played a major part in making that available to, once the club was up and running, she got back what she put in as part of the agreement, and she can look back with a lot of praise. But on the football side, that could have been a little bit better in terms of some of the decisions. But I think they know that's football. She's not needed to be criticised for that. It's not the fault, but certainly as a club, she's done a fantastic job.
I just want to say a huge thank you for your time, for everything you've done for our football club, your football club, my football club, Hearts fans, and their football club as well, for the time you've given us today as well. And given after the heart attack, you're now getting younger every day rather than older. In 2486, when you eventually decide you've had enough and the tributes are coming in, how do you want Hearts fans to remember Jim Jefferies?
I'm just a guy from, sort of background, hard-working people down in the village of Walliford that's produced players like, say, or people in football. Jock Wallace was from there at the time, Bert Slater, all these other one or two other people, John McClellan, myself. You there?
Still here.
Yeah, it's just the battery slow. And just to say that, you know, I hope that they appreciate that whether it was by playing and managing and everything, that I gave a lot to the club and I praised them in a big way, especially with that trophy win that always go down as the greatest day in the lives of a lot of players, and that's something nice to be part of.
One of the hardest things I had to do when I was at Radio 4 was to edit a Jim Jefferies interview because the answers were longer. And when you said to me today, how long is this going to be? I was like, oh, it'll be about an hour. Yeah, look, I really appreciate it. It's been nearly 3 hours. That's why your battery in your iPad is gone. So thank you so much for your time, and it's been a privilege and a pleasure to have you on Scarves Around the Funnel.
Good to see you again. We'll keep in touch, all right?